Okay, so today's video we're gonna do a Q&A. I've wanted to do one of these for a while. I just wasn't sure how interested you guys would be, but apparently you guys have put a lot of questions for me, which is really cool, so I'm really excited to answer them. Alright, so we're gonna start with, let's see here, Papa Bear Rides asks, how did you get into drifting? I got into drifting because a friend of mine had a similar car to me, and I went over there to check out all of his cars that he had, and he took me for a ride in his turbo Porsche 944. Now I had a non-turbo Porsche 944 at the time, and it was super fast, and I was like, wow, this is so cool, like it's so fast, like this is so fun. And then he took me around a turn and drifted it, and I was like mind blown. Like I had no idea what to think. So I still really wanted just a fast car. I didn't really care too much about the drifting aspect yet. I didn't really know a whole lot about what it was. So I ended up getting one with a limited slip diff. He's like, all right, well, if you got one with a limited slip diff, you have to go drifting. I'm like, okay, you know. So we went out to some spots. After that, it was like game over. I mean, I didn't stop since I started. So yeah, that's how I got into drifting. It was just kind of random. All right. The second question, I got this question a bunch of times, so I'm definitely going to answer this one. How did you meet Adam LZ? I met Adam through work, actually. He came in to get coilers installed on his car, and I was just kind of asking him, you know, what ride height he wanted it at and things like that, if we needed to do anything custom for him. And I noticed that he rode BMX. I didn't know who he was, so I took his bike, did some tricks, and we started talking. He was asking me about drifting, and you know, I had been drifting forever, so I was giving him some pointers like what kind of car to get and all that kind of stuff. And then we ended up just, you know, chilling and talking while I was working on the car. So he left and he messaged me on Facebook like a couple months later and was like, hey, I bought a SR240 like we were talking about. Should I bring it down to Florida? And I was like, what? Like, we were just talking about this and you already have one? Like, I was pretty surprised. It was pretty cool. I told him, you know, yeah, dude, bring it down to Florida, man. Like, we've got plenty of tracks here. It'll be a ton of fun. So he did, and then we just started hanging out, and now we're good friends. So, I mean, nothing too crazy. Just met each other and became friends. He's a cool guy. Let's see. What was your first car and what was your first drift car? I'll answer those both kind of simultaneously. It doesn't want to focus when I show you guys there, but you get the idea. First car was a 1984 Chevrolet El Camino. I hated the fact that it was automatic. I like resented it the whole time. I just wanted something stick shift. I wanted something fun that I could just like at least try to drive aggressively in, you know? That was like my main thing. I hated it. Looking back on it, it was a cool car. Now I understand that. Back then I just wanted something like fast that was 5-speed. In hindsight, I now have an automatic daily driver. It's really nice and comfortable to just put it in drive and like cruise. So that was my first car. First drift car was my Porsche 944 Turbo. It's kind of a weird turn of events. I had a nice non-turbo Porsche 944. Traded that for a 240. That turned out to be like, I got a bad end of the deal on that one. It was like a stock KA, like coilovers. The dude said he had like a turbo kit, but I didn't know enough then to know that it was just like a turbo that wouldn't work, like all this stuff that wouldn't work, and this ugly body kit. So, fortunately, this guy had a Porsche 944 Turbo that was like flat blue, and he wanted to get rid of it, and he was tired of working on it, so he had a 240 just like the one I had. So 2 weeks after I got the car, or less, I think it was like a week, because I didn't even have the title back yet in the mail, the dude said he was going to trade, so I went over there, I looked at it, I drove it, and then that was my first drift car, the Porsche 944 Turbo with the limited slip diff that I referenced earlier. That was a really fun car, but it was really, really hard to work on, and me not being a good mechanic when I started and not knowing what I was doing, that was like, oh man, it was really, really tough it was trial by fire though. I mean, and it's cool because I learned on that car, which is really hard to drive and really hard to drift, because it had a transaxle, so the transmission's in the back and the weight balance is odd, and the torsion bar suspension. There's a lot of things why it was a little bit difficult to drift and then very difficult to work on. But that made everything else that I've done since really easy. I got a 240 and I was like, wow, these things are super easy to work on, you know, really easy to drive and things like that. So, you know, I'm not mad about it. It worked out pretty well. I do miss the car, but I do not miss working on it. It was a nightmare that I would have to get into, and like a whole separate video is how long it would take me to explain how much of a nightmare that car was. Alright, let's see. How did you get your job at BC? Ian Stees asks. I don't know if I'm just wasting you guys' time by like trying to show you this, but anyway. I was out riding at these trails in Ocala with my friend Chelsea. If you guys watch Formula Drift, you may know who he is. He drives the BMW. And he was like, hey, like, how do you like your job? And I was like, I hate my job. My job sucked at the time, you know? And he's like, well, we're looking to hire at BC. Send me a resume and I'll see what I can do. And he kind of pushed pretty hard, convinced him to give me an interview, and then later on I got the job, and that's where I'm at now. So, you know, I have to thank him for that. It helped open a lot of opportunities for me, and it's been a really cool, fun job. The filming thing, I appreciate you guys' feedback because it's what helps me make these better. But it is hard. Like, I'm sorry that sometimes the clips come out of focus or overexposed, but it happens. Alright, so next question. Kind of covered that. When and how did you start drifting? When I started drifting, I was 17. Someone also asked in here, how old am I? I'm 23 now. What engine swap would you do if you had no money limit? Asked by A_Ian. In the Miata, I mean, LS swap, honestly. Reliability, the motor's not that heavy. I know a lot of you guys that like mentioned 2J, 1J. Those are cast iron blocks, inline 6-cylinder, so the weight is further forward because you got 2 cylinders further forward than a V8 or a 4-cylinder. And the LS is an all aluminum block. They're really not that heavy. They make good power. They're reliable. I used to hate LS's. I used to be like a turbo fanboy, and the problem with turbo setups is there's so many more parts to fail. The V8, you have like way less complication. If the motor is running rich, there's only a couple things it could be. If a turbo car is running rich, there's like a ton of things it could be. So, I mean, for that aspect, I'm the type where, yeah, like being different's cool, like standing out's cool, but I really like being able to just go to the track, start my car, drive it, beat on it, have fun, and then like drive home or drive it back on the trailer. I hate going to the track, doing 2 runs, and then fighting issues, and then doing 2 runs, and then having more issues, and then breaking it, and I'm just, that is why we're doing the K series for now, because it should be pretty reliable. It's going to be non-turbo, nice high revving, a lot of all naturally aspirated power. It should be good for exactly what I want. It's not going to make much more power than I was making before, but it will make it more reliably. That's the hope, at least. Would you rather have an R32 4-door with an RB25 DET or a stock S14? I'm not sure if that's really a question. R32 4-door, obviously. Did you go to school for mechanics? I did not. Never gone to any sort of school for mechanics. I never took shop class in high school. No, I never did any of that. I learned as I went. Practice makes perfect, really. I mean, the more stuff you have to work on, the more you learn how to work on it. Really, in my opinion, a lot of mechanics is all about common sense and like trial and error. Kind of being able to tell how tight a bolt is, you know, how tight you're getting it so you don't strip it or snap it, overstretch it. You know, knowing what size stuff is, knowing just quick little ways around problems is pretty much the key to all mechanics. I mean, everything else you can just kind of look at it and figure out how it goes together and comes apart. What is your favorite car you've ever owned? That would be my RB20. Not that I favor those motors or suggest them to anyone, but my RB20 S13 Coupe. I really love that car. It was one of those that just worked. I went to the track and it just worked, and it was a ton of fun. It had just enough power to drift with, you know, solid 225, 235s on it. It just took a beating and was like a ton of fun. It sounded cool. It looked cool. It had like this crazy shape camo thingy paint job. Not camo, but multiple shapes. I don't know. I'll put a picture like there. So yeah, I really like that car. That car was a lot of fun. I think I just like it because I have my best memories in it. I drove a lot of events in that car and had a lot of fun in that car. Lewis Fare, underscore Lewis and then underscore Fare. Shout out to Lewis. I will put his link down below in the description. He made the intro that you saw on the way in. Let me know what you guys thought about the intro, having an intro. I've never really done that, obviously, till now. And he also made the outro, which you will see later. He just randomly made them for me and sent them over to me, and I thought it was really cool, and I wanted to try them out, and I really appreciate him taking the time to make them, so thanks to him. Like I said, go check him out. I also want to say Ryan Little while we're talking about this. I use a lot of his music in all of these videos because it just fits so well. And it's people like him that make this possible for people like me. His channel is always linked below, but go check him out. You know, show him some love. If you guys like the music in the videos, you know, give him a comment on one of those songs and tell him you appreciate it, because I'm sure that stuff means a lot to me, and I know it would probably mean a lot to him. So, you know, I just appreciate him doing what he's doing. So if you guys could extend my thank you to him, I would appreciate it. Dr. P, what is your saddest moment in life and your happiest? Honestly, now's not the time to answer that question. It's just kind of like, you know, there's some sad times in my life that, you know, would make this like really depressing and whatnot, but I have very good times in my life and I'm very happy, so that's what we're talking about, so we're going to keep talking about. What's your dream drift car? Details though, engine, wheels, all that. S13 240 coupe, still front, origin style aero, two-tone, wide body front and rear work VSKFs with like really big lips, and like an 800 horsepower reliably, 2J, completely gutted, full roll cage, bride seats, and the other little knick-knack stuff I'd have to pick out at the time, but that overall would probably be my dream drift car. Joey Labi asks, how many cars do you currently own? How many have you owned? Oh man, I currently own 2. Just 2. I have owned, the last time I counted, like over 30. So yeah, I've had a lot of cars. You know, I like to try different things. I've bought, traded, sold a lot of cars. Mainly just traded, you know, I had something, I traded and traded my way up. Actually worked out well for me trading people a bunch of times, so yeah, I've had quite a lot of cars. But it's cool because I got to experience like all sorts of different cars, and I know like what I do and don't like, and I know that I always go back to S chassis and Miatas. How would you recommend to start drifting? Did you just sign up for some drift days? Did you start by doing solo sessions? I don't know what you mean by solo sessions, but yeah, just drift events. You find an event that's going on, you go there. There's tons of other people like you that have never been to an event before there, and they're also gonna not know what they're doing, and it's not a big deal. I'll probably make another full video on getting into drifting. I have a few I want to make. I was going to clean my garage, and I was like going to be part of this video, and I was going to like make this whole video of with the garage cleaned and in the area. I want to start making cool tutorial like informational videos like that, but I didn't have time. I'm going to Atlanta, so here we are. But let me know what other videos you guys would like to see. I want to do one about like the first drift car you should buy. I want to do one on how to mod your first drift car, like the most important mods, which will apply to pretty much everything. This autofocus is like freaking out right now. And then, you know, all sorts of stuff like that. So let me know what you guys like to see. What got you into cars in general? My dad, when I was a kid growing up, you know, he always had project cars, always told me stories about his cars. My granddad before him owned a repair shop or a restoration shop where he'd like restore old classics, you know, 58 Impalas and things like that. So it just kind of started at a very, very early age. How old were you when you learned how to drive? I was 6 when I learned how to drive around. I drove my dad's Jeep Cherokee, put a briefcase down and a phone book, and we drove around the yard. We were moving into this house with like 3 acres, so he let me try it out. Which, thinking back, like I don't know if I had a 6-year-old son, if I'd let him do that, but yeah, I mean, I'm glad he did. And then I learned to drive my first stick shift when I was 8. That was my other experience, so that was pretty entertaining as well. It took me a while. I remember it took me a while to try. I think it would have been a little easier when I was older to learn, but learning when I was 8 was kind of cool. I still had to pretty much relearn it when I got older. It was quicker and easier, but I didn't get it first try when I got older because it was so long since I'd done it as a kid. But it was in this little old like $300 Ford Ranger we had, so my dad didn't really care. Just like, whatever, you're gonna learn now. So that was pretty cool. There's a lot of questions I still want to answer, but unfortunately, that is it for today's Q&A. I will probably do another one of these. Let me know what you guys thought of this one so I know what to do better in the next one. This is my first one, so I ran through a bunch of ideas in my head on how to film it, and I couldn't really think of anything super interesting, so I just kind of filmed it here and did this. I figured at least the questions are kind of more important than the video itself. I wanted to get you guys the answers and whatnot to these, so anyway, yeah, that's it for this video. I will see you next time. Cue the outro you guys always ask for, because Lewis helped me out with that.